The following is intended for mature audiences only. Discretion is advised.
What's up, besties? Welcome back to another episode of Childlike at Best with Mike Valdes. I am and always will be the second part of that title. This is episode 12. We are pre-teens, ladies and gentlemen. Holy cow. One more and we're teenagers. We grow old so fast, you know? But before we get the show rolling, I have some exciting announcements for you. One is that I will be hosting for Nary Signs at the Miami Improv on August 18th. That's Sunday, this Sunday. If you're listening to this on release day, that is this Sunday. Nary is the head of the Geek Bro Podcast Network, which has many podcasts that are so great for your geek needs, like What's Up Bro, Mount Geek More, Mamas and Merlot, and many, many more. He's also open for amazing comedians from Arius Spears from Mad TV to Dave Chappelle. And honestly, I'm very honored that he asked me to host the show for him. This is going to be absolutely bananas, and I cannot wait to see you guys. And another exciting announcement, we have merch. We finally have merch. If you have any Childlike at Best merch needs, we've got t-shirts, we've got hoodies, we have baseball tees. Anything you like to wear that makes you not feel naked, we have it. Our merch storefront is on tpublic.com. You can search Childlike at Best on the search engine, or you can go to tpublic.com/user/childlike at best, and you'll be able to get any and all of the merch that you would like. This episode is my good friend Javi Palmieri. He is a musician and the lead singer of Diamond Aces. Diamond Aces is a pop punk band from the South Florida area. They have an album on Apple Music and Spotify called Robots and Dreamers. They're one of the handful of bands that I've remained friends with for many, many years, and we've played many shows together. You're going to get a lot of those stories in this episode. This episode is really fun. We talk a lot about music and a lot of our different show experiences, from good to bad, from tour experiences, all that kind of stuff. I really think that you guys are going to enjoy this episode. So without further ado, please enjoy my friend, Javi Palmieri. Hey everybody, this is Childlike at Best with Mike Valdes. Hey guys, guess what? I'm Mike Valdes, and today I have a very special guest with me, Javi from Diamond Aces. What's up, man?
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for doing this. This is really fun. I feel like I haven't seen you in forever.
Yeah, we see each other every few months. Sometimes we go a year without seeing each other. But also, I've known you for ever.
It's funny because I told my last guest this. I feel like I started this podcast so I could hang out with my friends because we never see each other anymore. But now this podcast gives us a professional reason to hang out. So that's the reason why I see anyone anymore, because everyone's an adult and doing their life and all that stuff.
Right.
Anyway, before we get started, before I start with the first question, the first thing we like to do here at Childlike at Best is we like to take a Flintstones vitamin.
Okay.
Those are the Flintstone Complete Gummies.
Awesome.
They're completely complete in that if you have diarrhea or anything, I got you covered.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And you can let the audience know what character you have if you want.
I can't tell who this is.
That's okay.
Yeah. But it's orange.
There you
it's
go.
Just a little.
It's usually always Pebbles, or as my first guest, Manny Gomez, likes to call her, Velma. So,
Here, did you want one or you already took one?
I technically haven't taken one, but I will.
All right, awesome.
So, as you're taking this, can you please tell me about where you grew up?
I grew up in Miami. I moved there when I was about 4 years old, and I lived in Miami up until I was about 13, and then I've lived in Pembroke Pines ever since. It was Miami was fun. You know, I think I had a pretty good childhood, other than getting my house broken into a few times.
Okay, that's not a good childhood.
But other than that, it was all right. And then that's actually why we moved to Broward County. You know, it was a nicer area and everything. And I've been in Pembroke Pines since I was 13.
Now, when you were at school, what kind of kid would you say that you were? Like, who did you hang out with at lunch, essentially?
I was like pretty introverted, and in elementary school, everyone's just kind of friends with everybody,
Of
that
course.
kind of thing. In middle school,
Friends forever, dude.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I have some
Where's
friends.
that guy now?
I have some friends that one of them I brought him out to your show
Really?
last week. Yeah, his name is Gavin,
Okay.
and he was the one with the girlfriend there. But yeah, I've known him since the 4th grade. So
Holy cow,
yeah, I've
yeah.
known him longer than I've known my own sister.
That's insane.
So yeah, and then in middle school, everyone starts like their own little clique kind of thing,
course.
and like I was considered like one of the rockers in in middle school.
What made you that? You just decided to wear black pants, and they were like, "You like rock and roll."
I wasn't allowed to, like we had a uniform, and no, but I wore the Etnies skate shoes, and
Man, I'm so glad we're talking about this because this is exactly what I went through as well, because I went to private school and we had uniforms, and the thing that I found so funny is that there's always a senior superlative where they're like best dressed, and it's like, bro, we wear the same outfit every day. How are you the best dressed? Is it because I wear a WWJD bracelet and my freaking Airwalks? Like, is that why I'm the best dressed?
Yeah.
But yeah, so skate shoes, essentially.
Right, skate shoes, and then the music that I listened to, and also I used to take a guitar to school.
Yeah.
That's when I started playing guitar. I was like in the 7th grade, and I joined guitar class there. And
You guys had a guitar class? That's
yeah,
awesome.
we did. Yeah, and our instructor
weren't
was
that
really
lucky.
good.
Yeah.
Our instructor was amazing, and we put on a Star Wars musical.
That's awesome.
Yeah, all done by guitars. It was
That's so
amazing.
cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Holy cow. What era was this when you started playing guitar? Was it like, were you going around trying to impress girls playing Hey There Delilah, or like, what were you doing?
No. One night, I went to a New Year's party, and my uncle was performing at this like New Year's event or whatever, and I saw him, playing the guitar. I must have been about 10 years old, and I was like, holy crap, like
Yeah.
I want to do that, and it was just something that I loved for myself, and
Of
the only
course.
reason why I took the guitar to school was for me to continue practicing in lunch or whatever. I was never like the type to show off, like, oh, I play guitar and this and that. It was never,
Right.
I wasn't much of a looker anyway, so.
Right. No, I totally know how you feel. Yeah, it was like that for me, but I learned how to play piano just through going to school. So there was like a piano in our choir room, and I would skip lunches, I would skip classes just to go down because I knew that there was no one in the choir room, and I would
Right.
just play the piano for hours. What really sticks out in my mind is senior year for me, and most of my memories are not in class.
Yeah.
It's just me skipping classes.
Skipping classes, right? Yeah.
And it's just like, for reasons that are dumber and dumber every time. You are a musician, so what kind of music did you start getting into around that time?
Middle school and high school, I listened to a lot of metal. I listened to like a lot of Avenged Sevenfold.
Mm-hmm.
My dad raised me on Metallica,
Okay.
and so Avenged Sevenfold was like a huge band
Yeah.
at the time, and they had that same like heavy metal sound that
Of course.
Metallica had. So, and I was like, this is it,
Yeah.
like,
No, I know. Yeah. It's funny because in my house that would be considered demonic. So I mean, I knew of those bands and things like that, but like my house was the kind of place where like when Guitar Hero came out, I played it. My dad saw me playing it, and there's like stages where you're playing like Lollapalooza or whatever, but then there's like demon pentagrams because you're playing Lamb of God and stuff. And he's like, yeah, you're not playing this game anymore.
Dang.
So yeah, I had a weird childhood, man. So Avenged Sevenfold and things like that. But Diamond Aces, the band that you're in now, is not that at all.
No, yeah, yeah. We took a liking into pop punk. Again, it's a band from like the same time, which was Yellow Card.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
The early 2000s when Ocean Avenue, when that album came out, we were like hooked on that, and we still listen to that album.
Bro,
like,
can I tell you something?
yeah.
I found out about Yellow Card because I don't know if you remember this at all, but the WB had a show called Pepsi Concerts or something like that. And they would have bands, they would like break bands on this show, and it was like sponsored by Pepsi. And that's the first time I ever saw Yellow Card. That's the first time I ever saw
And-
Story of the Year.
Is that when they would have them, like, it would show them playing a song live or
Exactly,
something?
yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. That's how I found out about, well, no, they were big on MTV as well, but the band Hoobastank. I don't
Yeah,
know if you're-
Hoobastank was on there. They
Yeah.
played The Reason.
Yeah.
And that's all they still play.
No.
So if you go see them now, they just play The Reason 16 times. And Evanescence was there, or Herbal Essence, as I like to call them. There's yeah. So many bands broke off that Pepsi show. It was so weird.
Yeah.
It was because they were trying to promote this drink called Pepsi Twist or something, which was just Pepsi with lime in it. And they were like, let's do the Pepsi Twist to this new band, Story of the Year. And then they would come out and be like, yeah, I will. Yeah. It was great. But yeah, so anyway, Yellow Card. And then that was the first thing into, like, we like emo music, or we like the Warped Tour era of bands, right?
Yeah.
So how did you discover other bands? Just through social media?
When I was a kid, I listened a lot to the radio. Back then, the radio was much better, if you
Of
ask
course.
me.
Yeah, back then the radio played music.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how I started listening to My Chemical Romance,
Yeah.
Fall Out Boy,
Mhm.
you know, in their earlier albums and stuff.
Yeah. All the makeup bands.
Yeah.
They're good.
Yeah.
But they all wore makeup. It was
They
like
sure
it was
did.
a weird time in 2005.
Yeah.
But everyone wore makeup. Like, you were considered uncool if you were a guy and didn't have eyeliner. Like It was like,
Exactly.
why don't you have eyeliner on?
Yeah. Green Day was another big one. Well, obviously they were like they've always been like mainstream,
Of
but
course, yeah.
that one was a big one for me. You know, like Green Day was like what I listened to
Of
in,
course,
in
yeah.
middle school, at least as far as punk went.
So like Dookie and that era of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. For a long time for me, I never liked them. I don't think I liked them until American Idiot, because I just thought they were the band that did that song that everybody plays at graduation. It's like, come on, this band isn't even that good. And people are like, they're a punk band. And I'm like, no, they're not. They're a freaking graduation band.
Right. You know that me and my girlfriend were like talking about how we have like 3 or 4 songs to vote on for graduation.
Yeah.
And you always end up with Time of Your Life.
Yeah.
Yep. And or Good Riddance, whatever it's called.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then we were like, oh man, it's such a cliche song. It's so lame or whatever. And then like I like played it. I listened to it one day and it just brought me back to high school and I started crying. I was like, man, this is such a good song.
Oh my gosh. Come on.
As cheesy as you want it to be, like I
Well,
was like, oh, it's such a good song.
You know what's funny? Out of all the other graduation songs, at least that's the coolest one.
Right.
Because
right.
like, you could listen to Graduation by Vitamin C and be crying in your car, and that's way more sad.
Yeah.
As we go on, we'll remember. Just the worst.
Yeah.
So when you went home from school, what were the fandoms that you were into? So what kind of movies did you like, TV shows, things like that?
I've always been a huge Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
When I was like a lot younger, I used to watch Jurassic Park. Like,
Nice.
on repeat.
That's awesome.
Jurassic Park 1 and 2.
That's
Just,
awesome.
like, all the time.
That's great. Those two are really great. I talked about this with a buddy. I don't think I saw Jurassic Park, the movie itself, until maybe 11 or 12. I had seen it before, but I had only seen it in Spanish.
Okay.
So I thought that was the movie.
Right.
I never knew that it was like, oh, these are actual actors with English-speaking voices.
Right.
You know, I just thought it was El Parque Jurásica or like whatever. And like, I knew the movie starts with Que el Diablo and like things like that. I remember all that stuff, but I don't remember watching actual Jurassic Park.
Right. Well, if it makes you feel any better, that was like every Disney classic that I ever watched as a kid was in Spanish. And so like, you know, like growing yeah. Pinocho. Yeah. So instead of like when I was like in high school, all my friends would be like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna sing." What was the song in choir? We actually did a song from The Lion King.
Right.
The Circle of Life.
Right.
And yeah, like
To
we
be
did
fair, it was always in another language.
right. Everyone was like, "Oh yeah, you know that song?" And I'm like, "No, what is that?" And I was like, "Wait, I know this melody, but I don't know the lyrics."
El círculo de la vida es una vida soy yo. Like whatever.
Yeah.
You know what's
So
funny
like
is it's still in the Spanish version. It still starts with "Na te venía como mi chica." Or actually in Spanish it would be "Ay que vuelta que boli que bola."
Hola.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the Cuba edition.
That's the Cuban version of the Lion King.
Oh man.
I know way too much about this stuff. It's so weird. But anyway, so you saw, like all your Disney movies were in Spanish.
All of them.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah, I learned the lyrics to some Disney songs, because like whatever, like my friends, girlfriends, whatever, like, oh, you need to know this song. Like,
Of course,
it's like a Disney classic. Whatever.
You can't have a girlfriend and not know the English version of Part of Your World.
Exactly. And so like they're like, you need to learn these. So I actually learned those songs when I was like 18, 19 years old. I'm sitting there rewatching The Little Mermaid.
Yeah, way too old to watch these movies, and you don't have kids. Like,
Yeah.
you're just like, oh my gosh, man, that's like most millennials now. They're just going to Disney by themselves with no kids. Everybody's super upset about it. So you liked Star Wars. You liked obviously like Disney movies and Jurassic Park and things like that. What about television?
As a kid, I don't remember watching other than like cartoons. Yeah, the cartoons that I watched were like Johnny Bravo. Dexter's Lab was my number one. That was it. Like Dexter's Lab was my jam. I also watched the Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah. And
that was the one show that in elementary school, as a guy, it was okay to talk about,
Of
know?
course.
Like, yeah, because like
know.
you couldn't watch anything like, like My Little Pony or anything like that. But Powerpuff Girls, that was okay. You know?
It was definitely a good show. I mean, we've talked about it. I talked about it with Manny and a couple of other people, but that era of Cartoon Network was just
golden.
A renaissance. Yeah, everything was amazing on it. And not only that, right when you would finish a lot of those shows, like the cartoon block, it would go into this like boomerang block. So you had the old Hanna-Barbera stuff, the Flintstones and the Jetsons, which is the same thing. And, you had all that kind of stuff. Now, you started playing music in 7th grade, around there?
Right.
When did Diamond Aces become a thing? Because I know that some of Diamond Aces is your family.
Right. So I started playing music with that name and everything when I was in, I want to say around the 11th grade.
Yeah.
So I was, 16 years old?
Okay.
16, 17. And it was just me on guitar. My cousin Adrian was on the drums. Mm-hmm. My brother, Christian, played guitar. And then we had our friend Josh play the bass. And we made our mistakes. Like everyone's first band is kind of like an experiment. You don't really know what you're doing. You don't know how to put out a record. You don't know how to, do all these things.
Yeah.
So those beginning years were like what I considered like my first band kind of thing, where we like learned the process of doing things. We didn't start knowing what we were doing, taking music seriously until about 2014, 2013. When we played at Revolution Live.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, like this is like something that we can do with our lives, this is something that we can take more seriously. And so we started like taking everything more seriously, and then from there we went on to like record our first EP, and further on, an album.
Now, just for the listener who doesn't know, Revolution Live is like basically, it isn't the A room, but it's maybe like the B room for like most bands that come through. It's a huge venue.
Yeah, it's like 2,000 something capacity. It's like
exactly
pretty big.
And
venue.
did you guys open for a band or?
No, we were actually playing a music festival there that went on from 11 a.m. to like 11 p.m. and we played. We sold. We were like in the top 3 bands to sell tickets that day, like most tickets. So we got to pick a pretty good time slot for us to play, and we played around 8:30, which was like a prime spot and all that. And it was a lot of fun.
I'm sure, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the name Diamond Aces?
Diamond Aces was just something that was kind of like thrown out there. Nobody like I said, when we started, like we didn't really have a clue what we were doing,
Yeah.
and I wanted to have a name that started with the word "the," kind of like the Beatles
Yeah.
and whatever other bands that start with "the."
Yeah.
And so at first we were called the Diamond Aces, and we started to we wanted to drop the word "the" because we just thought it was like a little, I don't know, like it sounded like a little more cliche that way, and so like we dropped the word "the" and just became Diamond Aces, and we wanted to put both words together like as if it was one word, like Diamond Aces being one word, because a lot of bands were coming out like I Wrestled a Bear Once, which is all
Right.
one word.
Exactly.
All those bands were coming out that were just like one word that wasn't supposed to be just one word.
Or Pevris.
Yeah.
I love Pevris.
Yeah. Um,
They're a great band.
Yeah, they are.
But they just misspelled their name.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, so we just kept it as Diamond Aces after that. I mean, we just kept the name because it's what we originally came up with.
Sure.
But it was just something that like we weren't really thinking of much when we came up with the name originally.
Man, I don't know if you've ever heard this story, but I want to say that I was listening to a podcast where somebody from SNL was talking to Paul McCartney because he was the musical guest. And he was talking about how surreal it was. And he asked him a question of, like, how did you come up with the name The Beatles or whatever? Like, did you ever know that you guys would become successful? And he's like, no, like, we came up with the name because we thought it was cute.
Right.
And we never thought we would become The Beatles.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if we knew we'd become The Beatles, we would have thought of something way cooler.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
but we just became The Beatles, you know? So it's a really funny answer because it's like, I don't think there's ever been any band that's like proud of their name. You know what I
Right.
mean? There's just like,
Yeah.
it's something we came up with when we were 14 because somebody asked us, what's the name of your band? And we didn't want to call it Five Guys,
Right.
you know, or whatever, because
Right.
that was already a burger place.
Yeah.
So, so we decided to call it freaking Bear Monster or whatever the name of the band is. And now it's like, whoa, you're in Bear Monster? That's the best band. You know, like we didn't know that it was Bear
Yeah.
Monster would be the freaking
Yeah.
next big thing, you know? So kind of transitioning into our next bit, do you remember any like commercials or anything that stick into your car, like commercials for toys or even cereal, anything like that?
Let me see. I remember like every Cookie Crisp commercial.
Yes, Cookie Crisp.
Yeah. And the Trix commercials as well.
Yeah.
I think those were like the most played for cereal. And you know, early 2000s, late 90s, you had a lot of like Tony the Tiger.
Yeah, of course.
So,
Yeah.
so
They're great.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about this for a second. One of the things that I find really funny, especially about like the Frosted Flakes commercials, is it almost feels like they wanted at one point for Frosted Flakes to seem healthy because all the commercials were always kids
working out,
out,
like playing
like-
basketball or
and
whatever.
then Tony
Yeah.
the Tiger shows up and they're like, thank God someone brought sugary cereal because I'm tired of playing baseball right now.
Yeah.
Like, and then the whole thing with the Trix thing, it's like the kids never let the Trix rabbit have the Trix. So how does he even remember what these things taste like? Because like the whole thing is just like, I love these Trix cereal because this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, but have you had them though?
Yeah. Like, and at least the last 4 commercials, I haven't seen you even touch them. So,
Exactly.
like-
The kids never let you have them.
Yeah.
So are you going based off of what you think they might taste like, or you know, like that kind of thing? Did you have a favorite cereal growing up?
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yeah, that's usually everyone's favorite.
Yeah, it was the sugariest. So.
I mean, it is.
Yeah.
It's a very 0 to 60 cereal
Yeah.
for sure. It definitely is.
Yeah.
So my next bit that I like to do is I like to review a cereal with my guest. And usually I like to review a cereal that has a little bit to do with my guest in some way, shape, or form. So I spoke with my sponsors over at Funko. Now, by sponsor, I mean I like them and I buy all their products. And by spoke to, I mean I tweeted them repeatedly and they didn't get back to me. So for you, Javi, the cereal that I got was Funko brand Rick and Morty cereal.
Ooh.
It comes with a little puzzle on the back, all that kind of timey-wimey stuff.
Sweet. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm the only person ever to like sit there during breakfast and try to figure it out.
I think I've only had one guest who's reviewed the puzzle. And The puzzle is very easy.
It sure is. It's meant for kids.
But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and pour some of the cereal into my Reptar cereal bowl, and I'll try to mic it as best as I can so all the ASMR weirdos...
Yeah, all right, got it.
Yeah,
got it.
they can loop it and make it their ringtone or whatever the weird thing it is that they do.
Go to sleep to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet they like that one.
Yeah. Where they're going to be like, all right, that's the ringtone. It would be fun to review this cereal. But what would be more fun is for us to review this cereal as Morty, who's on the box. Or Rick, or whatever you'd like. So I'm going to go ahead and play some Rick and Morty music, and I would like for you to take some of that cereal and review it as Rick or Morty, or any character.
See, I'm not a huge fan of the show.
I should have prefaced this. The reason why I chose this cereal for you is because I think you already sound like Morty.
Oh, fuck, dude, no.
So you kind of just have to review the cereal.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Oh, I'm going to try the cereal for the first time. I don't know what's going on here.
You gotta try it, Morty.
See, I thought it would be sweeter.
Oh, that's because I poured some alcohol in it.
It kind of tastes what it looks like.
It tastes green?
It tastes green, dude.
You know, to be fair, that is a very Rick and Morty way of reviewing cereal. It tastes green. With a flavor profile of the letter H. Oh, man. I love that bit because I don't think I've ever had one guest that's like, I'm so ready for whatever it is that you're trying to do here. I always like putting people under the bus. It's really fun.
You sure did.
It's really fun. You actually got to see, you came to one of my shows recently.
I did.
And it was a show that I invited you to because it was free and that kind of thing. I had no idea what I was in for or what it was going to be. I thought it was just like a stand-up show. And it turned out that it was kind of like an improvised, like Conan O'Brien kind of a thing. And I was like, well, since I like to do this whole cereal thing, like I'll bring a cereal and I'll do that whole thing, you know, live on stage because I've never done it live with Reggie. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he had no idea that I was going to be like, oh, well, we're going to review this cereal because it was Conan O'Brien cereal. And I was like, oh, we're going to review this as Conan. And he was like, what in the world? And then he ended up throwing me under the bus later on.
Late with the song.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, he was like, oh, you grew up religious, right? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, weren't you a youth pastor? And I go, no. And he goes, yeah, you told me once that you were a youth pastor. And
you know, when we were talking before the show. And
yeah, we were talking before the show. And he had this song that you like to sing to people at church camp. What was that song? I go, what are you talking about?
It's like, you know, when the kids were scared and you wanted to sing them back to sleep.
Yeah. And then I invented this song about how you shouldn't be scared even though the demons from hell are trying to get you because Jesus is going to protect you.
Yeah.
It was awful, but at the same time, it was the greatest thing in the world because I'm pretty sure the reason why the audience loved it was because they knew that I was being thrown under the bus.
Yeah.
You know.
And that you did surprisingly well under pressure.
To me, it was the worst.
No, dude, you had the crowd laughing the entire time. I thought that was the best way to end your like interview thing in that, in that show.
Good, I'm glad because I was really nervous that people would be like, what is this show even like? What are they doing? Like that kind of thing.
Right.
I mean, I had a blast doing it, but that's the thing about comedy, man. You need people, or else it just seems weird. You know, like you don't because, and we can talk a little bit about this, you know, and you definitely know what it's like being a musician. I equate music and comedy a lot to each other, and I think that they're similar in a lot of ways, but they're different in so many ways. Yeah. And like, for example, you can play music to no one forever.
Right.
And you can be very good at it. You can record it. People can listen to those recordings, you know, that kind of thing. And if you choose to never play in front of people, you can have a career where you don't play in front of people, but you're still successful.
Right.
Comedy doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
I can practice in front of my mirror all the time. It doesn't mean that I'm funny or
Right.
that it's going to work or anything. I have to go in front of people, and those people have to validate whether it's funny or not.
Right.
Right. And sometimes those answers change. You never know. Music and comedy are similar, but the reason why they're great and horrible at the same time is because you can play a song for 3 years in front of people, and you'll never realize that that's a bad song because people are just like impressed that you have a guitar in your hands and you're singing.
Right.
But if you tell a joke and it isn't funny, you will find out immediately that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it's like good and bad at the same time.
You hear like dead silence, you're like, no, okay.
Oh, right.
Like,
Okay.
Right, moving on.
I'll see you later.
Yeah.
Have you had weird show experiences?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Can you share some stories with me?
Well, one of our most awkward moments on stage, and I talked about this in Manny and David's podcast.
Yeah, but this one's better, so.
Yeah.
I'm totally kidding. Subscribe to What the F is a podcast. I love those guys. Anyway.
It was actually how I met Manny and David.
Was it?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, because Manny messaged me on Facebook and was like,
they're
hey.
gonna be like on Tinder. I was like, what? He messaged me on Tinder. He's like, hey, love your profile.
Yeah, love your profile. I also checked out the link you had on your profile, and I like your band.
because of course a musician is going to have the link to their album on their Tinder.
Yeah. It's like, hey, if you're not gonna swipe right, just check out my album.
That's great.
No, so he messages me on Facebook and he goes, he's like, hey, my band normally plays this what are they called, like pep rally at an elementary and middle school.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the school. It was like an academy. It had like K through 6 or K through 8th grade.
Yeah.
On
was
one
it Relay
school.
for Life?
No, it was a pep rally for their
Okay.
like FCAT. Again, they were getting ready for their standardized tests.
Okay.
So he's like, yeah, my band usually plays this, but we're unavailable for this year. And he didn't tell me, but there was somebody from Give Up Ghost who we were friends with as well.
Right.
Someone from Give Up Ghost was like, hey, this dude Manny messaged us about playing a show. We can't play it. Can you guys play it?
Wow.
So he was asking, like, they were both asking me to play the show, but Manny didn't know that Give Up Ghost was also asking me. Turns out we were the third band down in Manny's pecking order.
That's crazy.
So
if it makes you feel any better, he didn't ask me at all. So
I end up like going to play, and it turns out that Manny has had another band play there as well, and they were called like, and I talked about this on the podcast with them. I can't remember the name to save my life, but I think it was called Be the Brave was the name of the band that
sounds
played.
about right.
Yeah. But anyway, Be the Brave played the year before us or something like that,
Right.
and Sleeping Sunset didn't. And this time around, Manny had us go there, and we were like, all right, we'll play. And as soon as we get on stage, like we get all our equipment ready, there must have been about 500 elementary schoolers in front of us. It's like a bunch of kids, and we had our name on our drum set. It said Diamond Aces on the drum set.
Yeah.
We had talked to this lady who was going to introduce us. Probably, I don't know, we probably exchanged like 40, 50 messages on Facebook before I even got there.
You know what's funny is that I don't remember this story 100%, but I've been through so many of these situations that I already know where the story's going, so I'm laughing already.
Yeah. I'm sure it happens every now and then, because I feel like names, like people's names, are also easy to like mix up and
Of
everything.
course, yeah.
So,
especially a name like Be the Brave or like something like that, where it's just like, no, it's only the Brave, or
Right,
like, or
right.
like that kind of thing, or it's the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah.
Like-
Yeah, no, like this lady, we had messaged. I had told her the band name a trillion times by this point, and she goes on the mic and she starts introducing us to all these students, which I don't know why she was doing the introduction, but like like for our band, like normally we introduce ourselves.
Of course, yeah.
But she had the microphone and she goes like, "Oh, so these are our friends who were with us last year," and I'm like, "Wait, no, this isn't going the right way," and my mic was muted and I couldn't say anything, and she was like, "Give it up for Be the Brave." And the students in the back who couldn't read the name on the drum set all cheered. Everyone in the front was reading our drum set going like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's not our name. And when my mic went on, I'm like, hey guys, we're Time and Aces. And it was just like such an awkward moment. We're just sitting there like, all right,
Dude.
this is our first song.
Oh my god.
Anyway,
man.
here's Wonderwall.
Bro. I said maybe.
Yeah.
Dude, let me tell you, I remember playing a show at the Talent Farm, and I had been playing music at this point for maybe 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And under the name On the Contrary, right?
I remember that.
And
That's
so-
what I met you as.
And so I decided at one point that I wanted to change the name because I felt like I had written new songs and I felt like the quality of the recordings had changed, and I just felt like we were a different band.
Right.
Like I was a different kind of thing. And also, you know, On the Contrary was more of like, it was supposed to be a band, but it ended up just being me and like that kind of stuff. And it was a lot of marketing things as well. So I was like, oh, well, instead, it'll be easier if I call it Mike Valdes and the Noise, because it's me, and then the noise can change, and it doesn't have to necessarily be this guy is always on bass and this guy is always on drums. Like nobody's going to get their feelings hurt because it's like, well, we came here to see Mike Valdes, and most of the time I will be there. And so, you know, like that kind of thing, unless I bring in a hologram or whatever, you know? And so,
In which case, it's still a hologram of Mike Valdes.
yeah, exactly. And I was like just going through this transition, and Kevin, who is amazing, I love this guy. He gave me a lot of my first opportunities in the music scene and all these things.
We're talking about Kevin Burns?
Yeah, Mr. Burns.
Yeah, good dude.
Great dude. And he knew that there was a name change, but like forgot in a lot of ways. So I remember we played this set. I played it with Manny David and Brandon Rosado, and we annihilated. Like it was amazing. We did so well. There were people singing songs. I mean, it was awesome. And right at the very end, you know how there's always that awkward Talent Farm guy
Yeah.
that's like, let's give it up for Farthole Magoo, and you know, like whatever the name of the band is.
Yeah.
You know, like that kind of thing. I'll never forget it to save my life, dude. He goes, let's give it up for Mike Valdes presents On the Contrary and the Noise. I'm like, what in the world just happened?
Oh my god.
It's like all 3 band names like in one
in one go.
in one thing, and because and I understand why he was confused, because he's like, it's Mike Valdes. He used to be in a band called On the Contrary. The guys from Sleeping Sunset are there, so like, it's Mike Valdes On the Contrary. Is it Mike Valdes presents On the Contrary and the Noise with Sleeping Sunset? Is it? And it's like, I understand like why he would do that, but at the same time, it's not that complicated.
Right.
So I totally understand how like awkward it is. It's also really funny in a lot of ways that happened, because when you're a band that isn't like super popular, because people aren't like necessarily there to see you, you're constantly reminding people of what your name is.
Yeah.
You know, because it's just like, hey, if you like what we're doing, this is our band name. You could find
Right,
it
you
on
gotta promote
Spotify.
it.
Exactly. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on whatever. I was saying the name of our band
The entire set.
The entire set. I mean, he knew my name was Mike Valdes. You know, like, I don't know. I just thought that was super funny. But anyway, I feel like there's another story too, right? There's one that we talked about at a comedy show.
Yeah. All right, I will. I know exactly.
Was
Wait,
it the same? Was it the same show?
No.
How funny would that have been?
The
It's the worst day of your life.
I would have quit music. Like, wow, this is the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. I love the way that like, because like I tell the story exactly how it happened. It like played itself out to be a joke. Like,
Yeah, of
you know,
course.
it was like perfect timing on everything. And so we played a Relay for Life, and that was it was like at some like middle school or high school that they were hosting it at. And on the side of this is important to remember, on the side of the track, because it was like at a track and field
Yeah.
kind of thing. On the side of the track, they had a bounce house.
Mhm.
And so we're playing, and at this time, we had a younger member in our band. It was Griffin. He was 14 years old. We were all like 18, 19, you know, like in college,
Mhm.
and he was 14 years old, right? And we finished playing, and it was like an amazing set. Like we played like so well. And everybody, like a lot of people from the audience were, you know, the same age as Griffin. They were like 14, 15, 16, like that age. and they wanted to play tag with us.
Mm-hmm.
And Griffin comes up to me and he's like, "Hey man, these guys want to play tag with us. I think that it would be good just to like, so that they remember us, even more.
Right.
And every time you message them or tell them about a show, they'll like come out and everything. We'll be like the guys that they play tag with."
Right.
And I was like, "Okay, that's a great idea." So like we start we start playing tag, and we're just like kind of running around everywhere with like like a bunch of like kids, and um. All of a sudden, everything stopped because this guy came up to me and he starts yelling at me. Like,
Oh, boy.
yeah, it went like 100 to 0 really quick. Like everybody stopped because like this guy came up to me and was just like yelling, and he was like, "Which one of you like mother effers was the one who like hit my daughter?" And we're like, "Whoa, man! Like none of us hit your daughter." And
Right.
he's like, "You guys are a bunch of grown men running around a park, going into a bounce house, blah blah blah, and you guys hit my daughter." And we're like, "No, man, like I was talking to him myself, and I was like, "No, dude, like there's no way we like hit your daughter, and if we did, we would have like owned up to it. We would have been like, hey, whose kid is this? Like we would have like taken responsibility for it. Like there's like no way that we did that." And he's like, "You're a liar," blah, blah, blah. And he starts yelling. Now by this point, there's even cops, and the entire track was just dead quiet, listening to what was going on, right? And I'm getting louder, and this guy's getting louder. We're just like yelling at each other, and he's like, "You guys hit my daughter," and he just like wouldn't let go of that, And I was like, "Dude, for the last time, none of us have even been in that bounce house, like because that's where like his daughter got hit or whatever." And I was like, "None of us have ever been in that bounce house. Like, there's no reason why we would hit your daughter in there." And I'm like yelling at the top of my lungs, and then for a second, there's just like quiet, like absolute silence. And out of the bounce house comes my drummer, Adrian, and he didn't know what was going on. So, like, it's like dead quiet. And Adrian just goes, "Booga, booga, 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 booga." Like, he's like running out of the bounce house, making that noise to like scare us. Cause he thought that, I don't know what he thought was going on. And he's like running out going, "Booga, booga, booga, booga." And then I looked at the guy and I'm looking at Adrian and I'm like, "Well, he doesn't count. He's just an idiot."
Yeah.
Like, I don't know this guy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't play tag with kids.
Never.
If you're in a
Kids
band,
are terrible.
Yeah, kids aren't. If they're yours, then you can play tag.
Yeah.
But other than that, that's not really the best way to go. So Diamond Aces has an EP and a full length, right?
Right. So the EP doesn't exist like on Spotify or anything. So pretty much what we did was like we dissolved that EP and we took 4 songs from it. It was a 6-song EP. It was a pretty long EP, but like we took 4 songs from there and put them into the album that the full length album that we have, which is 11 tracks.
What's the name of it? Just so people know.
Robots and Dreamers.
Okay.
And I have a story behind the name in just a second. The EP was called The Ashes EP, and then like we put 4 of those songs into the Robots and Dreamers album, and that's been on Spotify for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
The name was actually inspired because like the message is pretty clear. Like Robots and Dreamers is like 2 like completely different like people in society is basically what we wanted to call it. Where you have like a robot was like what I considered someone who worked a 9 to 5 kind of thing, just like was another cog in the machine.
Yeah.
And a dreamer was being somebody who did music for a living, for example, And we actually took that inspiration from The Dreamer, which was your album.
Was it really? Holy cow.
Yeah. I know you're just finding this out now. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, we
Holy cow.
completely took inspiration from that.
Wow, man. That's super humbling. Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. And you were like, oh, and Mike Valdes is also a robot. So we're just... It's like...
He's a robot with an album named The Dreamer.
Yeah,
no,
with an album. Exactly. I do look like an animatronic that plays piano. But anyway. No, that's really sweet, man. What songs would you say, like if you were to say 3 songs from that album, what would you say someone who's never heard Diamond Aces and they're listening to this podcast and they're like, man, I really want to listen to Diamond Aces. What 3 songs would you recommend that they listen to?
So in all of the sets that we play live, like we do play 3 songs no matter what, how the show is or whatever. We do play 3 songs off that album that are just always going to be in our set. One of them is the song that we open with, just because it's very bouncy, it's like, and it hypes up a crowd and everything. we would always open with a song called "She's So Perfect,"
Mhm.
and a lot of people know that as the Mermaid song because we sing this line that goes, "My mermaid, she's so perfect." But yeah, so like that like people are always like people who like buy all of our merch and everything, they will not know the name to that song. They're just like, "Oh, the Mermaid song."
Dude,
But
first of all, you need to have a shirt with a mermaid on it that says the name of the song.
right, well, we have a shirt with a robot on it. So.
Your other shirt's just a picture of me. Like
one of a robot and the other's Mike Valdes.
Yeah.
And the little,
the
you
dreamer, right?
Yeah. And I wanted to have that logo with you and the spiky hair like you had on like with the On the Contrary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, it's so funny because I was just on a podcast recently and he asked me about On the Contrary, and I was like, it's almost like, how do you know about that? Because I have to like harken back to my own life to remember those things because it's been so long since I've gone by that name. And like, but yeah, like I still have people with like one of my buddies when I changed my band name, he was like, what am I going to do about my bracelet and all the merch with your name on it? And I'm like, let's get new merch. Like,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal.
Yeah,
You know?
I saw this band from New Jersey, and I saw them once, and then got to play with them the second time they were in town. And the first time I saw them, they were called Bad Case of Big Mouth, and the second time they came around, they were called Big Mouth
Yeah.
or Bad Mouth. It was
Bad Mouth, yeah.
something like that. And I bought their hat with their original name,
Yeah.
and the second show, I was playing the show with their hat on, and I was like, "Yo, you guys owe me a new hat." And the lead singer cracked up and gave me a new hat.
That's really funny.
Yeah. Then after She's So Perfect, in the middle of our set somewhere, we have like kind of like a sing along that's called Oceanside.
Yeah.
We released that before the rest of the album just because like we thought that would get people's attention. It was like more of the sound, like the majority of the sound of the album is more pop than punk.
It's going to sound funny, but I kind of mean it too, but I kind of don't. Especially She's So Perfect and a couple of your newer songs. The breakdowns, because it's very, very pop, and then it gets really heavy.
Right.
And I like to call that like flexing breakdowns.
Yeah.
Because it's like, God, like I feel so strong right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I've seen you flex at some of our shows.
it makes you feel strong.
Yeah.
You know, like you're like, yes.
Yeah.
You know? Like ironically, a band 4 Years Strong.
Right.
Their breakdowns are a lot like that to me, where it's like they make you feel. Also, I'm just weird because music makes me feel things. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like, you know, but it's true. Like whenever I hear something like that, like you're just like, man, I feel strong right now or whatever. You know, I assume that's how it feels when like, you know, a 14-year-old girl listens to Roar by Katy Perry, you know, where they're just like, I can do anything I want, you know. Like, I am a lion,
Yeah.
you know, like whatever. Like, no, you're just a person. And in a couple of years, you'll realize you don't mean anything.
Oh,
So, but I'm joking, obviously.
Right.
So, but She's So Perfect.
Oceanside, which is like the sing along.
Yeah,
It's more poppy.
Yeah, that song actually, when you say that, that's a very Yellow Card sounding song. You know, so it harkens back to that kind of style.
Yeah, like I said, it was more of like our pop songs, which is like the majority of our songs in the album. But we do have like the songs that are like, you know, heavier, and our closing song is our heaviest song.
Yeah.
And it's just because, like, for live purposes, that's just like the way it works, you know.
Of
like,
course,
you
you want to end with
yeah,
you want to end
with
with
your
a banger.
strongest,
You
yeah.
don't want to close with everyone like, what the heck was that?
Yeah, like someone crying. Yeah, yeah, we're gonna close now. This song's about my aunt dying.
Yeah. It's real bad.
So our the last song that we play it's track 6 on the album. It's called Art of War.
Mm-hmm.
That one was written by like most of it was written by Alan Rivas, who was in our band. He was the bassist in our band, and that song is about like personal struggle, you know, and it goes with like what happened to Alan and everything.
Yeah.
Like, he suffered with depression for a while, but
Obviously, if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to. But is it, you know, is it something that you want to talk about?
for like people who don't follow Diamond Aces, or like people who do know Diamond Aces and didn't know about Alan, he was our bassist for about 1.5 years.
Yeah.
And we had our first tour booked and everything, and he committed suicide. and it hit us really hard. We were inactive for almost a whole year, and then we put out the album. Right, like when we were coming out, we put out the album, which he recorded, mixed, mastered, everything.
Yeah.
So we put that album out, and if you see like in the back of the physical album, it says "In loving memory of Alan Jose Rivas."
Yeah.
So it was all like dedicated to him after that, and we're working on a song to release for him now,
Of course.
and after that, thankfully, we were able to like get back on our feet, and we mentioned him at all of our shows.
Of course.
All of them. And then in the new song that we have, we some of like part of the lyrics say "You're in our hearts and on our stage," like just because like he's always gonna be there no matter what. Like you can't change the fact like his voice, his him playing bass, everything is gonna be in the album forever. So.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, man, I think that lines like that are really important for the listener.
Yeah.
Even if they don't necessarily know the story, because it makes the listener also feel like they belong.
Right.
Because it's like you're always worth being in our hearts and you're always worth being on stage, and that kind of thing. And that's really what music is about. It's about making people feel less alone.
Right.
In a lot of ways. And I didn't really have a relationship with Alan. I met him one time, and it was at one of your shows.
Right.
And he was nothing but complimentary to me. Like he was so nice and had no reason to be. Like it was just like, because I was just like there to support you guys. Because we've been friends forever, for years. He had no reason to like come up to me and be like, he asked me, hey, do you aren't you like with Manny and David, like you play with them? And I was like, yeah, I have my own band. And he's like, yeah, I've heard your stuff and it's really good. I really enjoy metal a little bit more, but I love, the things that you do because I love music and all this stuff. He was nothing but complimentary and nice and that kind of stuff. And it just like, I struggle with depression a lot as well, and anxiety, and I medicate and things like that. I also don't find any embarrassment in medicating myself for that. Because
absolutely not. You're doing something about, like, you want to fix something or improve like an aspect of your life, and that's what you're doing by medicating.
Yeah,
improving.
and the thing that it's just tough because depending on the kind of life that you have, or the kind of, sometimes it has to do with your background. And for example, Latins, at least Cubans, are very like hard-headed, so they'll see something as like depression as like, okay, just snap out of it. And it's
right.
Like, but I can't do that.
Right.
Like if I could, I would have done it 25 minutes ago.
Right.
But I can't. The best way that I could equate it to somebody that doesn't have anxiety or depression or anything like that, when you describe depression and anxiety to somebody that's never felt it, it's kind of like showing them a map to something where they can see where you're going. They understand everything about the map. They understand everything, but they're not in the car with you.
Yeah.
And when you're in the car, sometimes it's hectic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, super.
But if you're listening to this and you struggle with that kind of stuff, go see somebody, talk to somebody. Don't feel embarrassed about it.
Yeah, there's absolutely no shame in seeking help.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah.
You're worth everyone and anyone's time.
Yeah, of course. And like when you have the flu, you have a fever, whatever the case is, you go to a doctor because you want to improve like your well-being. There's absolutely no difference just because like one's like a mental disease compared to like, having the flu or a fever. Right. There's no difference. Like seeking help for either thing is not it's not embarrassing, you know?
Exactly. But transitioning a little bit, that reminded me of the show that we did meet at, which is one of the weirdest shows I've ever played.
Is that the one in Boynton Beach?
Was it?
I think we played with On the Contrary in Boynton Beach. You remember that tiny little, it was like a little hole in the wall venue? It's like a small warehouse.
That wasn't the first time.
It wasn't?
But that was definitely a really weird venue. I want to say the night before, at that show specifically, the night before they had just done like a punk show, all the light bulbs were gone.
Oh, sweet.
You remember that? How there were no lights?
Yeah, there was no lights.
There were no lights, and my band that I was with, it wasn't On the Contrary. It was when I was singing for a punk band called Atlantic. And the band that I was with had like a light show, and that was the
And that
only
was the
source
lighting.
of light.
Yeah, I remember that. I was gonna say we used like
Everyone-
a band's lighting.
Yeah, everyone used our light show.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there were no lights.
Wild.
And if you sat in the couch, the spring would go through the cushion. Like, it was the worst. Like, you were just like, oh, I have every disease right now. Like, it was
all of them.
it was the worst. The show that we met at, it was a good show. Don't get me wrong. It was just like a weird circumstance, essentially. It was for someone's birthday party, and she asked you guys to play. She asked Atlantic to play, but Atlantic couldn't do it. So I was like, I'll do it as Mike Valdes in the Noise. And so it was another one of those issues where it was like, Mike Valdes presents Atlantic and the Noise.
Oh
Like, and where it's like, okay, maybe I'm doing this whole band name thing wrong.
Yeah.
You know, like, and like, in fact, I remember when we got paid for it, we got the check had our band names on it. And
Like all of band
Yeah.
names?
all of my band names on it. And so it was like, the check was like, Mike Valdes presents Atlantic and the Noise, or like whatever it was. And it was just me and David. Like,
Right.
we're just
Yeah,
playing
yeah,
an
I
acoustic
remember
show.
that.
We're just playing an acoustic show. But I remember that was the night that at least we properly met. I'm sure that we knew each other on social media and things like that.
Right.
But that's not really
Probably.
meeting, you
Right,
know?
right.
But do you remember that show at all?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
There's pictures of that on my Facebook.
Are there really?
Mm-hmm.
Who else played? It was a pretty good show, actually.
Give Up Ghost?
Yeah, it was Give Up Ghost. It was you guys. It was me and all three of my bands.
All at the same time?
Yeah, all at the same time, apparently, even though it was just me and David.
2 people, 3
Yeah.
bands. Mm.
How does this work?
How does that work? Yeah, I don't remember who else, but I remember it being like a pretty good show. Like,
Yeah.
I have pictures of that, and there's some kids like crowd surfing to our music.
Yeah.
So
How funny is that?
Yeah.
Where it's like that's how punk kids can distinguish whether it's a good show.
Yeah.
There were kids getting hurt at our show, so
yeah.
yeah, it was pretty good.
There were 3 nosebleeds, 1 passed out.
All in all, great show.
Yeah, great show. Oh, we only lost half a person today.
Yeah.
It was a decent show.
Yeah. They called the ambulance, but they didn't go to the hospital. Pretty successful show. Because,
Yeah.
like, they were concerned for their danger, but we didn't get sued.
Right.
Goodness. Man, we've played, how many other shows? I feel like we've played so many shows together.
When we were on tour, the first time we had it was a 4 or 5 band lineup where I had my sister open the show.
Mhm.
Then I had Common Luck, who was just an acoustic act at the time. I don't know if they're still together, but I think they're a band right now,
Mhm.
like a full band. Then I had you perform, and then the
Mhm.
band that we were on tour with, which was Subby Dudes from Ohio,
Okay.
and then we closed the show.
When was this?
This was February of 2017. It was at Inkwell.
Yes, I remember this show.
Yes, that
Yeah.
there were 2 guys who got into
Yeah.
a fight that
Yeah,
night,
yeah.
and they grabbed your suitcase with your merch and swung it at the other.
Yeah, man, it's, you know.
That was a funk show.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. You learn a lot of things about punk kids when you play the music that I play, particularly because normal people would see the music that I play as bitch music or whatever, you know. But what's so great is that I remember specifically at that show we covered 1,000 Miles by Vanessa Carlton.
I remember that.
And dude, you would have thought the room was on fire.
Yeah.
Like, people went insane.
Yeah, crazy for that song. That was so good.
The joke that I always love to tell whenever I sing that song is this next song is a song that has the most famous piano riff of all time in it. And I really do believe that because it's the only song when people sing the song, they sing the piano riff.
Yeah.
No one can sing that song without going you know, like nobody can do that. And so much so that I remember like halfway through, it's just the entire crowd is going, but and I'm like, I'm playing the song. You don't have to sing that
You
part.
could have just like stopped playing for that second and have the whole crowd go.
It would have been great. But yeah, that's really funny. That show, I remember you guys in particular freaking killed that show. It was great. Yeah, I
man.
remember that. And I definitely remember there was a fight at the very end of the show.
Yeah.
Which, it was fine, you know.
Yeah.
Just so the listener that doesn't know, when you come see me live, one of the things that I like to do is I like to have the suitcase from the front cover of Dreamer. I put all my merch in there. And I just thought it was like a cute and clever way to sell the merch and, you know, things like that. And sometimes it works out really well, and sometimes drunk people see it as like, oh, that's a weapon for me to use, you know, for this next Super Smash Brothers move I'm gonna do on someone or whatever. And that's
The old
what happened.
suitcase swing.
The whole suitcase swing. That's what happened. What's the best show you've ever played?
So we've played a few like amazing, like really amazing shows that like stood out. Most of them have been on tour.
Yeah.
Like because like one thing, because like I know that like our hometown fans love us, you know, and that's the thing. And some of us are like our closest friends. They give us like so much energy, so much support, and like it's, you know, like you have a few friends that you always hit up for your shows, and you're like, dude, you got to come hype this crowd up, you know.
Well, and not only that, dude, the last time I saw you guys, like your local fan base is like really into you.
Yeah, they're like swaying back and forth the entire time,
Yeah.
moshing, they're jumping, everything.
And what's good is that it allows people that have never heard of you before to be like, man, these people seem to like them.
Right.
Like, these guys must be good. Because that's the thing, especially about South Florida, is like South Florida doesn't necessarily want to jump into the pool.
Right.
They want to test the water a little bit.
yeah.
And if they see that people are in the pool enjoying themselves,
They'll
they're
jump
like,
in with
all
them.
right, that
Yeah.
sounds good then. You
Yeah.
know, like that kind of thing. Florida is filled with what Chris D'Elia calls kudas. You know, like barracudas, where it's just like they see something shiny and they go to it.
Right.
You know? That's why Ultra is a thing. And it's like, you don't really like EDM. You just do it because everyone else does it.
Yeah.
You know, like that kind of thing. I might be wrong, but it certainly does feel a lot like Miami.
Yeah,
is
no,
very like,
everyone hops on the hype train.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so sorry I keep interrupting you.
Oh, that's
What
okay,
is
man.
there's two shows that you were talking about that are like the best shows you've ever played.
So I'm just gonna talk about the ones outside of Florida
Yeah.
because like in Florida, you know, we just didn't expect to get that much of a reception, you know, like a reaction from people.
Well, it was your first tour, right?
No, the ones that we had like really good shows at were on our second and third tour.
Okay.
Yeah, we had two amazing ones I want to say like three amazing ones in our second tour,
Yeah.
and then one that like was the best show of the entire tour in our third tour. The ones I'll just name off the cities that we like did really well in was Dallas. Yeah, Dallas treated us like we were from there.
Yeah.
We sold so much merch. I felt bad because like we played like really really well. We were the opening band that show, and we had the entire crowd lined up at our merch table.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, and it was like 60 something, 70 something people lined up waiting to get merch and take pictures of us and stuff. And nobody was watching the band that was after us. They were all talking to
God.
us. Yeah, it was like I was like, "Yo, guys, go in there and check them out." And they were just waiting in line to like get our stuff. You know?
That's crazy.
Yeah. So Dallas was awesome in that perspective. We played Albuquerque, New Mexico. That was a music festival as well. And I remember the promoter tweeted about us and wrote about us on Facebook and everything. Like he loved us, and the entire crowd loved us. The sound guy asked me for a CD. Like it was just
That's
a
awesome.
wonderful. Yeah, and
You got meth and everything when you were there?
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you got
meth,
meth.
heroin, all the works.
No, just Albuquerque's really into
it's-
meth. I know
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Because of Breaking Bad, but
Yeah. Yeah, we wanted to visit Walter White's house, but we didn't.
I don't think you really want to. There's, going back to that, just to like go off on a small tangent. It's funny because like there's things that you'll say it and you'll think about it and it's funny, but then when you actually see those things, you're like, yeah, that's not funny at
Yes.
all. You know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
this guy, I'll never forget it to save my life. There was this kid at my youth group at one point. We went to Rock the Universe. Have you ever been to Rock the Universe?
No.
It's essentially a Christian music
like,
festival
in Universal.
in Universal
Right.
Studios. Yeah, they did like a Christian music festival, and he wasn't having a very good time. So he's just like, "Man, I'm gonna go into the bathroom and I'm gonna crap on the sink." And I was like, "Ha ha, that's hilarious." And then like 2 or 3 hours later, he found me at like freaking Cat in the Hat World or whatever, and he's just like, "Dude, come to the bathroom." and dude, it wasn't funny at all.
Yeah. Dude, you're gonna get in so much trouble for this.
Yep. So I was like, I mean, it's funny looking back at it now, but it just was not funny at the time. I was like, this is not good. But yeah, so Albuquerque, I know you guys played in LA. How was that show?
The LA show was all right. I think that the promoter messed it up. He put 4 local bands first and then 3 touring bands. We were the second to last. By the time we played, everyone was gone because you saw 4 local bands.
Yeah. DIY shows are hard because they're always stacked.
Yeah.
And it's just like too many bands, dude.
Like, yeah. I think 7 bands. I mean, we were on a 3-band tour package, which is big enough as it is.
Yeah. Honestly, for a tour like that, I would say most 1 band opens.
1 band opens in the tour package and 1 closing band from LA. And that's what I told him. I was like, hey, man, next time you might want to consider having an LA closing band because people are going to stay for them. They're not going to stay for the people from Miami.
Right.
You know? So LA was all right, but we had a show in Colorado that we were all like super hyped up for because the name of the place was the Mesa Theater. And that sounds amazing. You know, you're like, oh, you're performing at the Mesa Theater. You're like, that sounds super cool.
Yeah. And it's just a giant table.
A giant mesa. No, we got there and our name along with like the other touring bands was like up on like, you know, the theater sign, whatever, and like we were like, oh my god.
Diamond Days is Jesus and the Disciples. Just everyone that's been on a huge table.
Yeah. Oh man. No, so we got there and we see this venue. It was bigger than Revolution. So
Holy cow.
Yeah, so we were like, what's going on here?
Right.
You know, like what bands are we playing with today?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, like I'm checking out the place and I'm like, dude, this is amazing. And my brother comes up to me and you know, he's like, dude, did you see where we're gonna play? And I'm like, why are you upset about it? And he's like, no, we're not gonna play in the main stage. We're playing in like the little basement by the bathrooms. And I was
no.
what? And we go and like there's like a bar as soon as you go in, and like behind the bar underground, there's a small little room that they put like local bands and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, that's depressing, you know?
That's really depressing.
And we see the first band and there were probably about 10 to 15 people in the room. So we were like, you know, this isn't that great. Then another local band played, the room filled up a little more. Then the first touring band went on, the room was like packed and we were like, oh snap, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
There were like more than 60 people there in like a tiny little room. Like it was probably over capacity, like the amount of people that were there. And we were like, oh my God. And so we started playing, and we start with our song "She's So Perfect," which is bouncy. Yeah. And I was like, "All right, let's see how this goes." And dude, people had drinks in their hands, like you name it. Like people were like smoking stuff like that, and everybody in that room was bouncing. And we were like, "Oh my god!" Like my bassist looked at me and was like, "What's going on?" Yeah. Like the entire room was giving us such a good reaction.
That's
we were
awesome.
like, oh my, like everybody in the room was completely engaged.
That's
and I had them singing along, and you know, when we played Oceanside, and there's, you know, the line that there's a line in Oceanside that says, I want to move to California.
Yeah.
Because I was a 16-year-old rebel when I wrote that.
Yeah.
And I said I want to move to Colorado, and people lost their crap, dude. They were like, oh my god, he said Colorado.
Dude. Man, can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Let's go into this, because like, I mean, you're in a band and you understand, like, when you do that, you're doing it to get that reaction.
Right.
But then when you see a band do it, you're like rolling your eyes so hard.
Yeah, you're like, oh, it's so
dude.
cheesy. Come on.
Like, it's like when every time I watch Andrew McMahon, I love that guy to death. I've seen him over 30 times. He's my favorite musician.
Right.
But every time he sings Dark Blue and he's in Miami, there's this part where he goes, and then the water reached the West Coast. He changes it to the East Coast.
Oh, my God.
And everyone goes, oh, my God, that's where Florida is. And I'm like, come on.
It's like, I'm on the East Coast.
It's like not even specific to where we are. It's a coast.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like he said, then the water reached to Revolution Live in Fort Lauderdale. Yeah. Like, he's saying the East Coast.
East Coast, which could be like the Carolinas.
Exactly. It could be anywhere.
Anywhere.
The East Coast. Like,
yeah.
That's so funny to me, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. But that's awesome, because something that's really awesome about it's like funny at the same time, but when you're in a band and you're like at a huge show, like let's say you're watching your favorite band and you're just in the middle of this huge crowd. You're like, man, this freaking sucks. I hate being here. And then you think outside of the box for a second, and you're like, if I was playing this show though, I would be so happy. Like seeing other people miserable.
Right.
Like they're just like, come on, man. Like this sucks. Like I got beer spilled all over me. Like this girl doesn't stop singing the song before the band shows up. Like like they have homemade shirts.
Yeah.
Like all this stuff. Like come on, man. This has been an episode. Where can people find you, Javi?
Diamond Aces you can find on Spotify, Google Play, Apple Music. It's on like over 40 different outlets out there. So like if you live somewhere in Europe, you can find us.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know what those stores are called, but you can find us. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram.
Uns Apple Music.
Uns Apple Music. Das Spotify.
Yeah, das Spotify. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's what it is.
Absolutely everyone. For social media, Instagram, Facebook, stuff like that. We're going to be announcing something later on because Diamond Aces has been inactive for a while now, and we're going to be announcing something pretty big.
Cool.
Yeah, and we're still going to be releasing a song though. So,
awesome.
Like pretty soon.
What about you personally? Like, what if somebody wants to follow the what you ate for dinner or whatever?
Oh yeah, because I go on Facebook and it's like, it asks you like, what are you up to for your status? It's like, I'm cleaning my fridge. Like, dude, if that's your answer, just say you're doing nothing. Like, like don't type anything because that's the same thing.
Well, that's what's great about social media is that there's so many liars.
Yeah.
Because like 90% of people on Facebook, like, what are you up to? Nothing. I'm on Facebook.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out a way to make my life seem cooler than freaking Bob, or whatever his name is from high school, So are you on Instagram and all that?
I am. My Instagram name is jpalmieri21,
and it's at Diamond Aces for all social media.
So at Diamond Aces for Instagram and Twitter. We're not very active on our Twitter, but yeah. And then if you look up Diamond Aces on Facebook, that's where we're most active.
Okay. For me, you can find me on Instagram at Mike Valdes, on Twitter at I am Mike Valdes. You can go to whoismikevaldes.com to find out the answer to that question, and subscribe to the podcast. Let your friends know, let your family know. Let's grow this family, and have a good week, guys. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being here. This was really fun. Bye, besties.